Real quick, I want to tell you about a free webinar I'm hosting on April 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time called Repurposing Content for Your Podcast. Depending on the guru of the day, you need a podcast, you need to be on TikTok, you need to be posting on LinkedIn, and don't forget your own blog and newsletter. And this can lead to burnout fast. But I'm here to tell you a better way. By repurposing content, there's a reason I'm able to publish 3 podcast episodes per week, 3 newsletters, and post on LinkedIn almost daily. So in this free 60-minute webinar, you will learn how to capture content ideas as easily as possible, how to build your own content flywheel from content you've already created, how to keep track of everything, and how to create a two-way street where you're repurposing for and from your podcast. Sign up for free today at profitablepodcaster.fm/repurpose. If you are struggling to create content, you need this webinar. Again, that URL is profitablepodcaster.fm/repurpose. One of the best ways you can make money with your podcast is by using it to showcase your expertise and your authority in a field, and then getting people who listen to hire you in a client or customer relationship, buy one of your products, or get private coaching. But one of the absolute wrong ways to do this is by doing it duplicitously. Recently, I was asked to be a guest on 3 different podcasts just to be given a hard sell on their services after the interview. This is the absolute wrong way to make money with your podcast. Today, we're going to talk about how the tactic works, why it's wrong, how to do this the right way, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing in the future to try to protect against this tactic. Again, going into this episode, I'm not saying that selling is wrong. I'm saying that your podcast guests are not your sales funnel. Hello and welcome to Make Money Podcasting, where I teach you how to make your first $10,000 with your podcast. On this show, you'll learn tried and true methods to increase your revenue and turn your podcast from a money pit into a money maker. Hi, I'm your host, Joe Casabona, and my podcasts have been making money from day one without a lot of downloads. I'll share everything I know with you here on Make Money Podcasting, presented by Podcast Liftoff and Nexus. If you want a surefire way to betray trust in your podcast, invite a guest on just to ambush them with a sales pitch for your own services. Your podcast guests are not part of your sales funnel. Not even close. So first of all, let's talk about how this tactic works. Someone will cold pitch you to come on their show. They're probably not going to do it via email, though they might. I've had it happen via Twitter DM, LinkedIn messaging, and a automated email because somebody else recommended me for a show. They almost definitely won't tell you why they think you're a good fit. They'll just say, hey, come on my podcast. Here's a recent episode. Almost like they feel like they need to prove that they're putting out these episodes. The interview, quote unquote, will be a calendar invite that is 30 minutes absolute max. They're trying to cram as many of these in as possible because they are sales calls. They're not treating this as content that they want to publish. And then after the interview, I should say that they will publish it, but that is not the primary goal. And so they're not going to promote episodes like you or I would promote episodes. And then after the interview, they'll straight up cold pitch you. Some are savvier than others. This week, as I record this, I was on one where the guy just straight up launched into a pitch after he stopped recording. He said, "Do you want to get more customers or clients?" And I knew immediately where he was going. And I was polite, but firm in my rejection. Another one was a little bit savvier. After we stopped recording, he goes, something from our interview that I didn't touch on, but want to ask you about. And then he used that as a jump off point to do the pitch. And he said, "Can I set up a call with one of our people?" So that was another tactic. The third one, is the most cold. I've never actually talked to the host of this show because I got an automated email because somebody recommended me. That put me into an email funnel where I then filled out a form and recorded my own audio, and he recorded the bumper later. And then he was like, "Hey, your podcast is published." Again, automated email. "Your podcast is published. Do you want to do a written interview too?" And I thought, well, I'm trying to be on more sites, so why not? And then I got put into a sales funnel. "Hey, do you want to join our coaches or whatever? It's $790 a year." So, but it was all pretty clearly from the outset a way just to get me into their sales funnel. So now let's talk about why this tactic is wrong, if I need to tell you. When you invite someone onto your show, you are asking them to share a lot of what they know in order to enrich your audience. For me, that means I'm going to think about the things I want to say. I'm going to look into your show a little bit to understand your audience because I want to make the best impression possible. And then I'm taking time out of my day because I think that this is content that you're going to promote, I'm going to help promote, and I want to do, again, the best job I can. The social contract is that a podcast guest gives you their time for free in exchange for content that you can publish on your channels. I position my main show, How I Built It, as free coaching calls from successful creators. And that's honestly what I feel they are. All of my guests have given me and my audience fantastic advice. I want to make them look as best as possible. I want those episodes to reach as many people as possible because I am grateful that they've given me good content. But when you immediately pitch someone after you interview them, you're telling them two things. One, you really don't care about their expertise. You just had them on under some thinly veiled guise to put them into a sales funnel or on a sales call. And number two, you don't really care about their time because you had to lie to get them on a Zoom call or whatever. And honestly, tricking people into sales calls by using a podcast is desperate and gross. It not only makes you look bad, but it makes other podcasters look bad as well. This and every episode of Make Money Podcasting is brought to you by Store Builder from Nexus. As a podcaster, you might be wondering what's the best way for me to implement some of the things that we talk about on this show. How can I easily make money with my own website? And when it comes to setting up an e-commerce site, you kind of have the choice between an easy but limited platform or a limitless platform that you need to manage yourself, taking precious time away from your podcast. Until now, Store Builder is e-commerce made easy for everybody. It saves you time and delivers a storefront that lets you get to business. As someone who has set up multiple e-commerce sites, I can tell you that Store Builder has been a much easier experience than anything else I've tried. Answer a few questions, add your content, and sell. Store Builder was created and is supported by the e-commerce experts at Nexus. I host all of my important sites, including the membership for my own podcast and this podcast at Nexus. Get the speed, security, and support you need when you need it. Whether you're selling podcast merch, offering a supplementary course, or you have a membership or subscription. Are you ready to monetize your podcast the way you want to? Head on over to makemoneypod.com/storebuilder, all one word, to try it for free for 30 days. That's makemoneypod.com/storebuilder. Thanks so much to Store Builder and Nexus for sponsoring this and every episode of Make Money Podcasting. Now I know what you're thinking. I've already said multiple times in multiple episodes of this show that your podcast is a great way for you to establish your expertise and get clients. And it is. So here's what you do instead, because I don't want you to get me wrong. I've gotten clients from my own podcast guests. They've come on my show. They've seen my process. We've had a conversation where I get to talk about podcasting a little bit or creating content or whatever. And then afterwards, either immediately afterwards or a few weeks afterwards, they'll email me and say, hey, do you do private coaching? Or, hey, you mentioned that course. I'd love to take the course. So here's what you do instead. You don't hard pitch them. You show them your expertise over the course of a conversation. You are respectful of their time, and you form an honest to God relationship with them. So here's how this process might look. Invite people on in good faith and have a conversation with them where you can both showcase your expertise. Before the recording, ask them what would make this a win for them. Afterwards, ask them how they feel it went. I always make it clear to my guests that if they need to rephrase something, we can do it right then and there. It's not live, and I want them to be able to make their points in the best way possible. And then stay in touch. Yes, this is a much longer quote-unquote sales funnel because it's not even a sales funnel at first. Remember, your guests are not potential clients. They shouldn't be. Through relationship building, they might become a potential client. This is a much more successful approach because you're building your network. I've gotten clients from my show, and my guests have referred me to their own clients as well. Because they trust me. Because they understand I know what I'm talking about. I will never, ever, ever refer anyone who got me on a call under false pretense. But the real truth is this. If you're starting a podcast just to have conversations with potential clients, your approach is duplicitous from the start. Getting people on a Zoom call, asking them a few questions, and then hitting them with a hard sell doesn't make you good at sales. It makes you nothing more than a charlatan. Now, I understand that if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably not doing that. But I feel like I had to get this out. It really bothered me that it's happened a few times now. It feels like a thing that people are doing because they think that that's the way they need to make money with their podcast. And that's honestly why I started this podcast. I want to show people the right way to make money. So I want to end with what I'm doing to try to prevent against this. If you'll recall from about 10 minutes ago, the tactic works because someone's going to cold pitch you. So the first thing I will say back to them is, thanks so much for reaching out. Your show looks really interesting. I'm curious, why do you think I would make a good guest? And if it's an automated email, they might not even respond to this. But if they do respond to it and they haven't done their research, which they probably haven't, then they'll just say, I really just want to tell your story. Or I like interviewing entrepreneurs. And then you can either say, what about my story do you want to tell? Or what particular area of my expertise will help your audience the best? Those questions, I would cut it off after 2. But those questions will be enough for you to sniff out if someone is just getting you on their podcast because they want to rope you into a sales call. The other thing is that for a couple of them, I got an email saying, hi, I was referred to you by whoever. So I will reach out to that person and I'll say, hey, did you actually refer me to these people? I'll ask them how it went. And then I will also ask the person who reached out, oh, great. What did whoever Alice say? Why did Alice say she was recommending me? And again, that's that little gatekeeping question that if they did even a little tiny bit of research, they'll have an answer to. If they don't, then that's a red flag. So that's it for this episode of Make Money Podcasting. The wrong way to make money with your podcast is by treating your podcast guests as part of your sales funnel, as assuming that they are potential clients right from the start. Many of the people who come on my podcast also have podcasts. I do not assume that they are going to be my clients. I would never do that because I'm betraying their trust and their time and their energy and their expertise and my audience. Like if I'm just asking you 5 of the same questions to get through to the part where I can hard sell you on my Facebook ad service. Whoops, that was a real service I was just pitched on. Then I'm wasting everybody's time, including my own. So instead, you use your podcast to showcase your expertise. And it's going to take more time, but you're going to be more successful because then the people who need your services will reach out because they trust you. All right, that is it for this episode of Make Money Podcasting. Thanks so much for listening. To get all of the show notes, you can head over to makemoneypod.com/009. Thanks so much to Nexus for being a presenting sponsor. Until next time, I'm Joe Casabona, and I can't wait to see what you make.